Good morning. I wanted to begin this experiment by just saying a few words as to why I'm making these videos. The reason I'm doing this is because I have prepared a sermon series on 1 Corinthians, and I wanted to videotape it because there were a couple members of this Facebook group that I'm a part of. It's actually a Christian primitivist group, and a couple of them expressed interest in the sermon series that I happened to mention in that group. And so I'm filming them mostly because these two members express interest in seeing them because they are heavily informed by the writings of John Chrysostom, or actually modeled after his sermons. And so that's why they expressed interest in seeing them. And because everyone in that group is trying to hold to the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. And not only are they, I'd assume, very conservative, Bible-believing Christians, but also I think people that are in that group, including myself, we are students of church history, and we want to allow our understandings of the Bible to be informed by how the earliest Christians understood the Bible. And that would increase the likelihood that we are holding to the faith that's once for all delivered to the saints by conforming our belief system to the same understanding that the Christians held to who lived closest in time to the apostles. So that's why it's called a Christian primitivist group. So we gladly confess to be primitivists. So that's why I'm making the video, first of all, is because they expressed interest in seeing this sermon series that's informed by John Chrysostom's sermons on this same book of the Bible. Also, I'm making the videos because I need practice in using this equipment that I bought, the video camera that's right in front of me, which I recently took with us to Sardinia, and having a hard time learning how to use it. Not so technologically inclined, so I thought this might be a good way to force me to use it. And I've also bought an action camera I need to learn how to use. I need to practice using this equipment and putting the videos on YouTube. So those are a couple reasons. Also, if I can learn how to use this equipment, I want to put these videos on YouTube, of course, and it's just another way of publishing God's truth. So for those reasons, I'm making this video, and this is just a test video to begin with. I'm just saying a few words, and I'll get that put on there, and then the following videos will actually be the sermons that I have prepared, and they're basically just verse by verse. It's expositional preaching. It's not a topical sermon series. It is expositional, verse by verse through 1 Corinthians. So if you're interested in that, interested in sermons that are informed by John Chrysostom, if you're interested in the book of 1 Corinthians, then you might enjoy watching these videos. So this sermon series, like I said, it's not just my understanding of the Bible or the understanding of the modern commentators, but it also very much informed by John Chrysostom's writings. I admit to using sermon helps. I don't just read the Bible and whatever thoughts pop into my head, that's what I preach. I use sermon helps because I have been fooled before. I was raised as a Baptist, the kind of Baptist that believes in once saved, always saved, and they don't believe that baptism has anything to do with our salvation. And so I've changed my belief on those things, and knowing what the earliest Christians believed on these things, that helped me straighten out my faith on those issues and on other issues. So, and in the process of learning, I began to teach and preach, and I've always worked full-time and gone to school at the same time, so being pressed for time, I'm not coming up with everything out of my own ideas. I use the writings of the early Christians. I use, there's a lot of different sermon helps out there besides modern day writers, or at least, you know, outside of the early church. People have written commentaries over the years, and I'm not ashamed to use those, although I test all things and always compare it to what the early church taught on these things, what the Bible is actually saying. So I use, and sermon outlines. You can buy books of sermon outlines that people's writing. These days you can go online and find good websites that have sermon outlines that at least that you can use them as a beginning point and then adopt them to your own style and make them your own. And I've done that sometimes. So that's basically what I'm doing in this sermon series, is I'm drawing from a lot from John Chrysostom, and you know, there are some points that I don't. I may think that he is influenced maybe by the church in his day, where at least by the time that he is writing, infant baptism had become extremely common, and you know, he had a huge state church in front of him, and his eschatology was a bit different than the earliest eschatology. So there, you know, I'm not using him slavishly by any means, but I am certainly drawing heavily from him. I like to use the early church as a guide, as like bumpers, like when you go bowling with a little child, they put up these bumpers to keep the ball from going in the gutter. That's the way I use the early church, to keep me from going, you know, horribly astray on things. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not interested in giving you my thoughts on 1 Corinthians, but I'm interested in giving a faithful exposition on 1 Corinthians. I'm just interested in what's true, and so that's why I'm making them. And I'll try to put this short little video on YouTube, and then I'll start with the sermon series. And as you can tell, I'm not the most eloquent person in the world, but you know, hopefully you will be edified by following these sermons as we go verse by verse through Paul's epistle to the Corinthians. God bless you.